The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into SEC Talk. And it's been a while since we have been here since the college football season ended, the national championship between TCU and Georgia. And then we shift our attention to March Madness. March Madness is almost here. Our next show will be our March Madness bracket show. And this is going to be pretty much the appetizer to Monday's show. On Monday, probably either the evening or the night, just depending on how our schedules work out. But we're going to be doing our annual SEC tournament bracket prediction and also preview. As you see here, the bracket, the top 4 seeds, and then we'll go on down the list going to the 6 through 10 seeds and also 11 through the 14 seeds as well. So the SEC tournament will kick off on Wednesday, which is tomorrow, March 8th, goes all the way to March 12th, going all the way to the SEC championship game. It's going to be in Nashville, Tennessee at Bridgestone Arena. And let's go through the top 4 seeds. We're going to do our preview, give our little season in review for each SEC team, and then we're going to give our predictions and who we have taking home the SEC championship trophy and really locking up a really good seed going into the March Madness tournament. So number 1 overall seed in the SEC tournament is the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, Alabama wasn't even picked SEC. Kentucky was a heavy favorite, especially returning Oscar Tshiebwe. Xavier Wheeler was another really good point guard that they had coming back. I mean, Kentucky, I know that was a team going from last year. We all remember St. Peter's knocked out. Kentucky was the number 2 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. But shifting back to Alabama, really quality wins early on. They beat number 1 Houston at Houston, so that was the best win on their resume. They also beat then ranked number 1 North Carolina. It was a double overtime game, crazy game in one of the early tournaments in the season. Alabama now shifts to the SEC, so they really had a good non-conference schedule. They had some quality quad 1 wins, and they go to the SEC play, and they just completely take over this. They have many losses on the schedule. They did have some close games, especially after the Brandon Miller news. They almost lost to South Carolina and Columbia. They had their fair share of some close wins against Auburn. They were down by 17 second game. They had a close wins throughout the season, but they've really been dominant as well. They really rely on their 3 points. The head coach that he is, that's going to be a team. So not only do they have shooters, but they have size down low. They have especially with Brandon Miller down low. He's really a phenomenal freshman, even with all the drama going on around him, some of his teammates. But Alabama won the SEC regular championship, but they did suffer a loss to Texas A&M, a team that we will be talking about now. Texas A&M, this was a team last year, if you remember, in the 2022 SEC tournament. The Aggies were pretty much on the bubble. They went all the way to championship game, and I feel like, to me, they got snubbed out of the NCAA tournament berth. But this year, Joe Lunardi has them really safe and locked in. They're number 7 seed, and they are poised to make some noise. They have one of the best point guards in the SEC with Wade Taylor. They have Boots Radford as well. They have some size and some noise. Texas A&M wasn't really one of the teams in the preseason that a lot of people had high expectations going on. I know that they made some noise in last year's SEC tournament, but I feel like this could be their year that they can, a Sweet 16, depending on how the bracket shakes up, whatever it releases on Sunday evening. But I have a lot of confidence with Texas A&M. They got a really good win against Alabama. Alabama is to be up there, not only a number 1 seed in the SEC tournament, but the main tournament that we'll be looking at in our bracket show coming in just a couple of days. So I think that Texas A&M, they're one of my teams in SEC that I might have going all the way to the Sweet 16 and maybe even go to Elite 8. They're that good. I think they're just a really solid, complete team. Buzz Williams has done a phenomenal job with this program. He won SEC Coach of the Year along with Vanderbilt's Jerry Stackhouse as well. So this I know that the SEC has been dubbed. It's been a down year. Teams like Tennessee has kind of fallen off, especially with injury as well to Sakai Ziegler. But let's go on down to the number 3 seed in the tournament. Is the Kentucky Wildcats. Kentucky got off to a rough start to the season. I mean, when you look at bracketology in the month of February, the month of January, Kentucky was either, a high digits to play-in game against Wisconsin at one point, and now they have slowly gotten their grip back together. I know that they had losses that scratch your head. Their key losses down the stretch. They lost didn't lose at Fayetteville. They lost to Rupp against Arkansas. They lost to Vanderbilt a couple of days ago. Vanderbilt hit a late shot to really get that quality win. But Kentucky, their last game, if you want to look at it, Arkansas was really dominating win from start to finish. So you're starting to see some guys. Austin Reeves has been a solid player. We know what he's capable of. He's pretty much a double-double machine. So he was a National Player of the Year last year. Hasn't quite been the year, expectations from him. But as of late, Kentucky, I think that Kentucky was a pick by last year was a national championship pick. This year probably not as close, but this could be a team. They're right around the line of 6 seed, 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. I think that Kentucky is really set up not only for a deep run in the SEC tournament, but they definitely have what it takes, especially if they can get Severe Wheeler back. Wheeler has been out with an injury. That's a key injury that they've been dealing with. So we'll see if Wheeler comes back. Probably not going to come back for the tournament run, but we'll see if Kentucky can get him back for the NCAA tournament run. So let's now go through quickly here the 6 through 10 seeds here. Vanderbilt, like I mentioned, has been a really good program with Jerry Stackhouse. Auburn is the number 7 seed. We'll just quickly run through. I just wanted to really get into the top 4 seeds and what they have done. 5 seed is Tennessee. Arkansas is the number 10 seed. 8 seed is Florida. 9 seed is Mississippi State. And then you have your 13 and 12 seeds, Ole Miss and South Carolina. And surrounding the SEC tournament, you have number 14 LSU and number 11 Georgia. So let's waste no more time. That's pretty much everybody's the top season in review. And that's how the SEC tournament is going to shake up down there in Nashville. So let's get on now to our predictions. We'll go on now to the first round. We'll go all the way into the championship game. So our first game that's going to be kicking off here on Wednesday or even afternoon as well is going to be number 13 seed Ole Miss, number 12 seed South Carolina. And these two teams have really disappointed. Ole Miss fired Kermit Davis. There are some rumors, could we potentially see Will Wade be their head coach? Could we see a guy like Chris Beard? And there are also some Group of 5 candidates as well. So Ole Miss is going to turn somewhere, but for now, they're going to be rolling with an interim coach going to the SEC tournament. And they have seen some flashes throughout the season, but Ole Miss has just been a team that you just can't pick anywhere in the SEC tournament. And then South Carolina has been a team that this is a new head coach. Frank Martin decided he got fired program, and South Carolina decided to go another direction. It hasn't been the year that they were quite hoping for, but they have had a quality win. Their most quality win was against Kentucky. They really needed the Wildcats whenever Kentucky wasn't really mentioned to be in the NCAA tournament. They're on the bubble, but South Carolina also, like I mentioned earlier, they almost gave Alabama good shot at it. But Ole Miss, South Carolina, I'm going to have really no upsets here. I'm going to go with the Gamecocks of South Carolina. I think that they're going to handle their business in the first round, and we're going to see South Carolina move on to the second round here of the SEC tournament. So our next round is the first round, the second matchup of the first round. You have LSU, the number 14 seed, and Georgia's the number 11 seed. Now, both of these teams did play. Georgia did sweep the Tigers. Both of the contests were close. And it's always hard to beat a team 3 times, but LSU just hasn't really shown me any sense of life throughout the season, especially in SEC play. LSU, the non-conference schedule was really weak. They really their best quality opponent was Kansas State at the buzzer in that tournament. But LSU got all number 9 at the time. LSU ended up beating them, but after that, LSU went on a 15-game losing streak. They ended up snapping that and beating Vanderbilt, but after that, all losses. So not the season that LSU was hoping for in Matt McMahon's first year. For Georgia, on the other hand, this was the year of Mike White. White was the head coach of Florida, and he went on down to arch rival Georgia. So I just trust Georgia more in this game. LSU just hasn't shown him well. The only bright spot for the Tigers is KJ Williams, but I just don't see any upsets here in the first round. So I'm going to give it to the Dogs. I think that Georgia, we have seen them make a run here in the SEC tournament back in 2008, whenever they were the lowest seed. It was that the tornado that happened around the Georgia Dome. It's a really, if you haven't really learned about the story, they had that. It was one of SEC Network's 30 for 30s. It's a really good story there. So I'm going to give I think that Georgia moves on into the second round to face Vandy. So we have our second round matchups now locked in. Our first one is number 9, Mississippi State, and number 8, Florida. Now, Florida lost a big piece. Colin Castleton is going to be out for the rest of the season. Florida has been an up and down team. They've really been in the middle of the pack in the SEC. They haven't really been in contention NCAA tournament, just really have the quality of a resume to get them there. Mississippi, on the other hand, is potentially on the bubble right now. They're one of the last 4 teams in, but they do have an opportunity to really lock them in either into the last 4 buys or potentially just lock them in as a 9 or maybe even a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. So I just that Mississippi State's going to be playing with their hair on fire, and they know that this is such a win and go home scenario. So I think that the Bulldogs, they've really Bruce Jans coming from New Mexico State. He's really been a good coach. I think the system that he has in place, they play one of the best defenses in the league. I think that they have the shooters as well. Tolu Smith has been a sensational player for Mississippi State. So I think that Mississippi State gets it done. You see a little upset here. I wouldn't really call it upset. I think that Mississippi State overall has been the better team, going against Florida. So I'm going to go with Mississippi State getting the face Alabama in the quarterfinals. And then our next matchup features 12 seed South Carolina coming off of a win against 13 seed Ole Miss, and they're going to be facing number 5 seed Tennessee. Now, Tennessee was one of my favorites going into the preseason. I really like this team. I think that they were really complete, especially with like Sakai Zealer. You had, your guys down low. You had the size. It's a really complete roster, but losing Sakai Ziegler is definitely going to sting for this roster going forward. You still have Santiago Vescovi. He's a really good three-point shooter. And then you have the guys, like I mentioned, down low. So Tennessee has the experience in these tournaments. They've really been a consistent basketball program. So that overall, even with Sakai Ziegler, I think that South Carolina is just a bad basketball team right now. I know that they've really challenged some of these teams down the stretch, but I feel like Tennessee as a whole, they'll get through this matchup pretty convincingly. I don't really see the Gamecocks. So I think that Tennessee is going to move on and face the number 4 seed Missouri. I completely forgot about Missouri, so once we get into that, I'll talk more about the Tigers of Mizzou. Our next matchup is number 10 seed Arkansas. This is a team that I would never have picked being a double-digit seed in the SEC, but here we are. And they're going to be facing number 7 seed Auburn. Now, both of these teams are kind of on the bubble, but they're really not on the bubble. Auburn is one of the last guys, or potentially one of the last teams to be the number 10 seed. Arkansas started out as a top 3, maybe 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. We were looking at the bracketology early on in the season. Auburn has really been an inconsistent team. I mean, they've had a couple of wins and they had a couple of losses where I was scratching my head. Arkansas has the talent to be one of the best teams in the country, but they just haven't really put it together. But I feel like Arkansas is going to be able to get this win. Auburn has just been too inconsistent for me. These are just 2 inconsistent programs, so I'm just going to go with overall talent. I know that Kentucky just ran over them. Auburn got a really good win against Tennessee. I think that ultimately is going to put them in. Maybe if they lose this game, they're going to be, sweating it out come Sunday. But I think that Arkansas, I'll go for another slight upset here, but I just don't really think that any of these have been upset so far. But I think that overall, with Nick Smith being there, guys down in the middle, Auburn as well, it's been a team that I've loved. I loved them last year. They had Jabari Smith as well. So I think that Arkansas is going to win this matchup. It's going to be close. It's a coin flip for me, but for now, I got to go with Arkansas. And then our last matchup, I don't even have to talk about this one. I just don't think that Georgia is going to beat Vanderbilt in this one. Vanderbilt, one of the hottest teams in the SEC, had really good wins down the stretch. I believe that their last 2 wins of the season was against Kentucky, and then also a really good Mississippi State team. Last game of the regular season, Mississippi State was really needing that win. Vanderbilt is starting to slowly play their way into the discussion of potentially being a bubble team. I checked, they weren't in it, but a couple of days ago, Lunardi had them in as the next 4 out. So to me, Vanderbilt has to either make it to the championship game or win it all to receive a berth. So we'll see. I think that there's some magic for this Vanderbilt team. They got the shooters to do it, and they got the coach to do it. I think that Jerry Stackhouse has done a sensational job with this Vanderbilt program. So the quarterfinals are set. We'll get right to it. Number 9 seed Mississippi State facing number 1 seed Alabama. Alabama won this matchup pretty convincingly the last time that these two teams faced. I don't really see it changing here. I think that Alabama is going to start heating up at some time. They got to heat up before March Madness to really feel confident about them. I really like this Alabama team. I think that they're one of the few teams that they can cut down the nets come early April whenever March Madness is really over with. But I think that Mississippi State, if I had to say a team that can make a run, Mississippi State, they just got a lot to play for. They pretty much win and in mode. I think that with one win against Florida, that would maybe do it, but a win against Alabama, they're locked in. So I think that this could definitely be a resume booster for Mississippi State. But in the end, you just got to go with the overall talent of Alabama. I know that they've been struggling down the stretch. I'm rolling with the Tide to the semifinals. 5 seed Tennessee, 4 seed Missouri. Now, both of these teams have faced off. It's been a pretty evenly matchup. Missouri last time played them. Missouri pulled off a crazy buzzer beater road at Tennessee. So I think that Tennessee gets their revenge here. I know that Sakai Ziegler, but Missouri has really been a little shaky down the stretch. You know that they just got by a bad LSU team. They've had some really quality wins throughout the season. Really good team. They're really locked into the SEC tournament. So even with the loss, they would be locked in to really good positioning, probably an 8 seed in the big dance. But I like this Tennessee team still overall. I know that Missouri has some really quality guys, especially with he's seasoned veteran there. I feel like he's been there forever. But I'm going to go with Tennessee. I'm going to go with the 5/4 here. And then we have 10 seed Arkansas, 2 seed Texas A&M. And this is where Arkansas run inning. I'm really becoming a fan of this Aggie team. I just feel like they just have everything that it's capable of making a deep run, not only in the SEC tournament, but in the NCAA tournament as well. So our last quarter matchup, we have 6-seeded Vanderbilt and 3 Kentucky. Now, like I mentioned, last time we saw these two teams on the court, Vanderbilt won at the last second. It was a clutch shot that, really ultimately led the Conference defeating Kentucky at Rupp. But I just don't see it happening here. I think that Kentucky is starting to find their rhythm. They're starting to find that their 1 through 5 lineup that they really can make some noise here in March. So I'm going to go with Kentucky. I know it's kind of all chalk right now. I have a 1, a 5, 2, and a 3 seed moving on, but this is what I got so far. But if I had to mention, if you're looking for like a high seed to make some noise, it's either Vanderbilt or Mississippi State. Those would be 2 teams that can make some noise and make us run maybe all the way to the championship if really the bracket shakes up for them. So our 2 semifinal matchups is number 1 seed Alabama and number 5 seeded Tennessee. Both of these teams did face off, and Tennessee blew the door off of Alabama last time at Thompson-Boling Arena. I have the Crimson Tide getting their revenge. I know it's all chalky with a 1 seed going to the championship. I just feel like this Alabama team is going to start heating up at some point. I know that there's a lot of talk going around this program right now, but they have to be locked in and focused. I know that this has been a team that's been a little iffy down the stretch, but I think that Alabama, the path that they have facing Mississippi State, facing a team like Tennessee, they're going to be set up for a championship run here. And then our next semifinal matchup is number 2 seeded Texas A&M and 3 seeded Kentucky. I think that probably get the grip of who I'm going to pick in this one or how high I've been talking about Texas A&M. But I do have been giving some respect to Kentucky. But in the end, I just love the guard play of Texas A&M. Wade Taylor is my favorite point guards in the SEC to watch. I just thought their teams would be a really good game to watch. Hopefully it happens between these two teams. But something about A&M, they're just something to me. I think that they have some unfinished business from year's tournament. They made it all the way to the championship and got exposed by Tennessee. So I think the Aggies want something more. And if they make all the way to the run, who knows? They get to a 5 seed. I think they have the resume and the quality of wins to do that. So in the championship, I know it's chalky. 1 seed Alabama, 2 seed Texas A&M. We did see the same matchup on Saturday. It was afternoon game on CBS. Texas A&M really controlled this game. Alabama had their first couple of leads late in the second quarter, but I'm going to go Texas A&M. I don't really want to go the 1 seed here, but I think that Texas A&M, the Aggies, are going to be your SEC tournament champs in 2023. So that's my SEC tournament bracket predictions. And like I mentioned, our March Madness show will be coming on Monday. We'll be filling out our bracket on Monday night. So definitely be sure to tune into that. Thank you all for tuning into SEC Talk, and we will see y'all next time. Have a good week.